Hello there, welcome to this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. When it comes to online harmful content, there's actually a lot of nuance that comes into play. There's a whole bunch of factors like where you live in the world or the type of society that you live in, even personal experiences. So when it comes to a guardrail for AI, how do you ensure that you're not creating harmful content with something along those lines? That's what Sam and Simon from Deepweaver are going to dive into this week on our 6-part series that we're looking at. This is part 3. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos that we've got as well, or other podcasts, depending on where it is that you're listening to this or seeing this. And make sure you also hit up our school classroom, where you can do a whole bunch of courses and meet industry professionals, or sign up for the Data Pro newsletter and get the latest news from the data world directly into your inbox. All right, let's jump over to that conversation now about harmful content between Sam and Simon.
Next up is preventing AI from generating harmful content. I guess this is also an interesting one. Is what do you define as being harmful in relation to free speech principles, as an example. So talk us through a little bit around what harmful content means to your average banking and financial institution.
Yeah, so maybe I'll give you my view of harmful content. It's a global thing, right? So it's obviously globally there's difference in cultural and legal standards. There's a big variety. So the way we look at it in Australia is related to the operating principles that we have as a culture, or the standards we have in terms of what exists in law today from a privacy perspective and all of those things. Challenge we have is it doesn't keep up at the same pace, right? Those laws aren't changing at the same rate as AI initiatives are being deployed. So if I was in a financial institution, for me, harmful things would be anything that is exploitive, anything that puts somebody in a worse credit situation than they are today, or anything that puts a person in a financially distressful situation, right? Or inadvertently shares information about their financial situation to others other than the person themselves, right? So misuse of that information, but there's this delicate balance between what could be perceived as harmful and what reduces the ability of these models to engage in more sensitive topics, right? If you think about financial institutions that are involved in sort of microfinancing at the lowest level of sort of economic growth, as opposed to trying to establish loans for people that are in a different demographic kind of environment and different social situation. And if you're an FSI and you're trying to help somebody navigate affordability of a loan, but the reason for them wanting that loan is because they're leaving a domestic violence situation, or there's been a split between a relationship that's very awkward to deal with, you don't want that data finding its way downstream in other areas, credit reporting, all those kind of stuff, right? So there's a level of privacy. Obviously, you share with your financial institution a lot of things about your current situation to help move forward. And this comes back to my point of what data should organizations have, even if they have it, should they have it? Do they use it at that point in time to help the situation? Let's say it's a financial distress situation, but then do they get rid of that data? You find a lot of these organizations have kept it for a long time, either unknowingly because the world was all about storage and keeping those crown jewels of data close and alive in case you needed it for the future. I think we have to be a little bit smarter about that. It's not about the storage, it's about why we have it when we have it, and when is it applicable to use it, right?
Yeah, I guess this is one of the really shall we say, gnarly problems that there is with large language models, and that's the right to be forgotten. So when you're talking about harmful financial data or information, there are limits on when something is remembered, or how long something is remembered for, and then it needs to be dispatched, so to speak. That's a significant problem in the way that LLMs are architected.
Yeah, look, it is. I guess Europe was kind of leading the way in that right to be forgotten kind of model. It's very hard to strip out of a large language model all the things around right to be forgotten. But from an evolutionary perspective, the delicate balance between KYC, know your customer, and the right to be forgotten and appropriate organizational data use, that friction is going to sit around for quite a while, right? So I would say financial institutions have to be less about the storage of what they know today about a person's situation and more about keeping the information that's relevant to them managing their portfolio risk around Simon Kaye, right?
Yeah.
But you'll see a lot of things coming in the future where you'll be able to opt out of certain things, drive your own right to be forgotten equation. But that butts up against credit reporting and all these other things where you have to be remembered because that's the only body of knowledge about my behavior, Simon, as how I engage with creditors or banks or financial institutions.
Yeah, I mean, it has many different dimensions to it, and yeah, so everything from prison sentences through to credit reporting and all of that sort of at what point do you put the past behind somebody, and forgive and forget, so to speak. So
Yep, that's true.
Okay, next, well, the final one in this 5 is fair and appropriate intellectual property and data usage. With generative AI, this is a major gray area from a legal standpoint. What are some of the legal and ethical disputes that are relevant to this? I know, for instance, is that the New York Times is suing OpenAI, from a copyright standpoint, but this has got to be a large and ongoing challenge for organizations.
Unfortunately, this one's going to get worse before it gets better, right? So there's a lot of disputes going on right now about just using somebody's physical likeness for advertising or for campaign management, as opposed to, but it's slightly different, right? It doesn't look like me or you, but if you're a famous person, using a likeness that people can associate with you, people are using to increase their size of wallet and increase their success as a business, right? You see it a lot in sort of authors, artists, music, all of those things, right? Little less in the corporate world, but I can see it will start bleeding into that, right? But the ones that are sort of prevalent now is people having work plagiarized, right? Or arguing that it's sort of inspired by Taylor Swift or inspired by famous artists, right? But here's what I've created. But we all know those kind of models. You can take their work, put it into the model, do some of your own code, and all of a sudden you've got, I'm creating Picasso paintings or similar, right? Very gray area, right? And it's important to understand that I think you'll find the future will be this sort of framework built for sort of licensing everything from a digital likeness of a person all the way through to what exists today already in the sphere of artists and authors and others. If you're going to use it to inspire you, there'll be a way to do that legitimately, right? As opposed to today, which is just a little bit, everything's available to everybody. And I could create a Sam Williams digital likeness and start building my own podcast, talk about similar topics. Not that I would, but there's a lot of those going on, right?
Yeah, I guess from a banking, banking, insurance, and finance standpoint, it comes down to risk. So in that particular industry, so any industry that relies heavily on the use of intellectual property that could be and stuff that could be plagiarized, that I imagine is where the biggest challenges lie.
Well, if you're managing financial risk, is there an added financial risk now around somebody plagiarizing a music artist's work and creating their own go-to-market and start selling that and have it pulled from under them, right? If you're helping write business loans or commercial finance for those people, or you're just generally underwriting them as a financial institution for their day-to-day business, right? So, yeah, you can see, I can see added risk from a financial services point of view, even if you're already working with the organizations that truly hold the intellectual property. You could see their businesses slump a little bit. So the decisions you made a year ago about that organization may not be relevant today, right?
Yeah, a great topic to talk to Disney, the Disney Corporation, about. Probably the most robust intellectual property protectors in the world.
Hey, thanks for checking out this week's episode. Don't forget to stick around for the next one as well, because this is all part of a series. There's a few episodes out now from this, as well as a whole bunch of other content that you can sit back and enjoy. Look, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and follow the channel. Until next time, look after yourself, live long, prosper, be one with the force, and we'll catch you all next time.